Hey fellow gamers, Chatty Sisa here. It is now more than a month since Dragon Age the Veilguard has been released. There have been some things that have been happening in the meantime, which again caused some controversy, and some people consider the game to be quite the flop of the year. I was also one of the more critical people, and I still am, and I'm watching the stuff related to Dragon Age quite through the critical lens of a very frustrated and disappointed fan from the original days of Dragon Age Origins. So let me share a couple of thoughts on everything that's been happening from the sales numbers that have not been released so far, through some controversial statements by other game developers, and then also through some of the discussion points that were coming out through the post-release interview with the game devs. So I'm hoping you are going to enjoy this vid, and in case you do, please don't forget to hit that like button below and also comment and share your thoughts in the comment section. It's really much appreciated. Thank you very much and enjoy watching. Alright, so let's start with the sales numbers, which I have mentioned already before, and the point is there are none. Weird. So nothing has been so far released. We have no clue. We have just some estimates from, I think, middle of November, which I have already shared in my previous vids. And the devs or the studio were saying that they were already selling 1 million copies, but that was, like I said, about middle of November. And since then, nothing. And you'd think that if a game is successful and you have a studio like Bioware, or as I call them, Zombieware, that belongs to a company like EA, if the game would be really a success and if they would really make good numbers, they would already by now release them. And instead, we have seen a couple of other things which they did, which was a discount for the game, for example, releasing the character creator for free, and so on. There are a few things which just don't add up with a good sales number. And I think really it's not so great as they are trying to make it seem. My thoughts here on this spot are, I wonder if we are even going to see the sales numbers anytime soon. Question is when. I think they are still trying to see what they can sell during the Christmas period, because the holidays are here. Probably they are counting on it that people will be bored and they will try to play some games. And as I said, they released the character creator for free, so they might try to pull in some new gamers. I'm not sure it's going to work, to be honest. And at this point, I think even though some reviews are quite positive, there is still quite a lot of reviews that are very negative, and we have to admit that some of the parts of the game which are actually essential for an RPG game, like the writing, for example, are really horrendous.
No buggers.
And that's not going to be fixed by a patch. And I don't think that people are willing to spend currently the full amount of money on the game, even though it's very new. I do believe that even some people who are still considering to play it will be probably waiting for some kind of sale and buy the game later at a later stage. Maybe because they just want to experience the environments, or maybe they want to, see how the combat works for them. But I highly doubt that there will be many people buying the game for the story or the writing, to be honest. So yeah, so much on the sales numbers. I think it's not a good sign that these numbers have not yet been released. And I think once they will be released, they will be probably abysmal, to be honest. The next point would be a little bit about the stats for the game. As you can see on the screen, we have now currently, as I said, more than a month since the game has been out. And there has been a concurrent player count, or all-time peak, last month with 89,000. So the game didn't even manage to hit 90,000 players. And that is really bad for a AAA game. And especially one that was as much expected as Dragon Age the Veilguard in an established franchise. So this is really a very low number. And if you look at the chart, you can see that the number of the players has been going down constantly over time. And we can see that currently we have about 9.7, almost 10K players. There really is only about 14, 15,000 people worldwide that are playing, let's say within a day, this game. Those are probably people who are still like finishing the game, who are playing it. It is a very low number for a AAA game. It is really not so great. There is something that was very controversial which is related to this, and that was a post by Daniel Vavra, who is the lead of the Warhorse Studios, which produced Kingdom Come Deliverance. I'm pretty sure you've heard about it. So he did compare his stats for his game with Dragon Age the Veilguard. And people have been bashing him for this post, which you can see on the screen, where they said he's being unprofessional. My point here is, and I do disagree with that, I know that probably many people will not be the same opinion, but I do disagree with people saying this is unprofessional. No, it's not. You have to compare yourself with the other people in your industry in order to see whether you are successful or not. And for somebody who has a, let's say, relatively small studio, the moment you can compare yourself to a company which is a AAA studio with a huge financial background and support from EA, then this is very telling. It has nothing to do with him being unprofessional. He's simply stating statistical facts. What he's saying is that his game was actually doing better, or is still doing better than a newly released AAA game, which says something about the quality of his game, first and foremost. And then also, of course, something about the, let's say, quality about the game that was released by a AAA studio. And it is also showing the problems which we are currently seeing in the gaming industry, that even though it's a big AAA studio, they are not able to produce a game that would be successful or as successful as a much smaller studio does. So this is saying something about the state of the industry as such. Now, people complaining that this is completely unprofessional and that he's bashing Veilguard, I wouldn't say it that way. I mean, if you can't handle the simple statement of statistics, then you belong into a kindergarten. That's exactly what I was also stating in my post on X as a reply. If you cannot handle the reality, because this is the reality, this is simply stats. It's math, it's stats, it's nothing more. Those are numbers. If you can't handle the numbers, then you should go back to the kindergarten where you belong with your childish infantile temper tantrums. This is not something that you should be perceiving as something as a personal attack towards you just because you're part of the industry or you're part of the studio that is being depicted here. Of course, people will compare themselves to each other. These days, I really am baffled by the people who are in the gaming industry, that they cannot even simply look at stats and numbers and rather consider the fact that something's going wrong and trying to figure out what's going wrong. Instead, they get offended. I think this industry is now full of adult people who are in fact no adults. We have children running around in mature adult bodies, but the mindset is like kids in the kindergarten. If I am entering a market with a product or a service, I do need to compare myself to the others who are offering the same product or service. I do this by looking at stats and looking at numbers. The stats and the numbers are not offensive, and somebody posting them is also not unprofessional. It's actually the opposite. He is being professional. He's not bashing Veilguard, and he's not saying you created a shit game. He's posting simply numbers. He's posting facts. These numbers are a fact. The point that I'm trying to make here is there are a ton of people in this industry who get offended by facts and by numbers. They get offended by reality. What does it tell you about the state of this industry? It's just crazy. I am on the side of Vavra here. He should be doing this and he should be calling out others because they should see it as a way how to better themselves, how to create better games, how to improve on the products that they are offering, in this case, the games for the gamers. So saying that he's unprofessional and calling him out and people are having meltdown because of this, it just says a lot about those people, not about him. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on this topic, but let me go back to the stats on Steam. So you have also some data in the bottom portion of the page, as you can see. We do have some store data, Twitch stats, and owner estimations, and then the monthly players breakdown. And the monthly players breakdown is quite interesting because, as you can see, the last 30 days are showing that they have lost about 28,000 players, which is a minus of about 32% over the last 30 days. Now, I would not wonder about this type of stats if we would be talking about a game that's about, I don't know, a year old, which in the meantime has been played and replayed a couple of times. But in this case, we are talking about a game that is completely new. And again, I will repeat, a game that comes from an established franchise and a game that people have been waiting for 10 years. So you would normally expect that such game would still gain players, not lose them at this time, and especially not lose them in December, right before holidays or during holidays. I am looking forward to see what the count or the numbers will be after the holidays and in January, and to see how that will be, because I think there will be some more people playing over the holidays as they will have simply more time. So those that have played the game already before or who have already bought it might just simply come back and just do a replay, maybe with a different type of combat skills, etc. So I would normally expect the number to go again a little bit up for December. And let me check then in January. But if it won't, then it will be really abysmal, as I said. So it will really indicate that the sales numbers, which have not been released, are probably really very, very bad. And what was also surprising, and that's the next topic, is, as you can see on the screen, Dragon Age the Veilguard drops to just $49.99 for Cyber Monday. Save $20 for a limited time. And again, this is something where I can see just a desperate try from the studio to quickly sell a few more copies before the year is over. And that again is just meaning for me that the game is really not doing so great. You do not release a game by the end of October, start of November, and then just a couple of weeks later put it on sale. You don't.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
If the game would be successful, you would still continue to sell it for a full price. You would not do this regardless of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever. You just don't do this 1 month after you release a completely new game, which has probably cost a ton of money. And we're talking about millions of dollars, most probably. So yeah, this is again something which I actually perceive rather negatively. This is telling me how desperate Zombieware and EA have to be when they are offering the game for a lowered price. And hand in hand with that goes the release of the character creator for free. what on earth would make me want to use that character creator if I'm not going to play the game? Yes, you release the character creator because you are hoping that people will after that buy the game. And it doesn't make sense in this case because people have already read the reviews and those who wanted to buy the game already did, or as I said before, they are waiting for a sale and they will buy it then during a sale when the game does not cost that much. But they will most probably not buy it just because you release the character creator for free. And what point does it have to release it for free and for people to use it? Are you going to create a character and then what, just stare at it? It doesn't make sense. For me, the character creator is part of a game. I'm only using it because I want to use then the character in a game. The character creator in this game is absolutely not inclusive. This game was supposed to be having the most inclusive character creator ever, but it's not. It's everything but. Try to create a good female-looking character. That's been already discussed 100 times in the meantime, but I have to come back to the topic again because of this release of the character creator for free. Why would I even want to use it if I cannot even create the character that I want? The butt and breast sliders are just a complete, laughable item. They're just basically non-existent. They are going from completely flat to a little bit more than flat.
And yes, I gave my rook one hell of an ass.
You serious?
It's just absolutely horrendous. Releasing the character creator looks just like another desperate try to get some more people to buy the game before the year is over, because obviously in the background the sales numbers are abysmal. And I think when Zombieware or EA will have the next discussion and next presentation with their shareholders, it will not look so great if they will show the numbers to them and those numbers will be abysmal. And they even don't manage to sell enough copies to cover the cost. I do believe that they really have to sell at least 4.5-5 million copies to actually recoup the cost for making the game. And we're not even talking about any profit. So this really is pointing to a very desperate attempt to get some more sales numbers in. I especially find it funny to read what they have released on their own page regarding the character creator. As you can see, be who you want to be. Character customization goes beyond appearances, so they are subtly trying to tell you, yeah, we did not include so much stuff in the character creator, like a good butt or a good breast size for women, but hey, the character is more than that, right? Yeah, it is true that you can select different lineages and combat classes and character faction and backstory, etc., but just don't say be who you want to be, because there's a ton of people who cannot create the rook that they want, and they cannot be who they want to be.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Now, on a more humorous note, there has been a custom Lucanis released, as you can see, and somebody compared him to Henry from Kingdom Come Deliverance. And the people over on Blue Sky are, of course, not happy with that, and they actually find it quite offensive, which brings me back to the topic where Daniel Vavra was stating the statistics and those numbers. I think there's now people who are trying to play with this, let's say, animosity that was created by some people on the Veilguard side having a meltdown. I do find it quite funny, and actually, if you look at the pictures, it is actually really looking like Henry from KCD. So I do like how the people are, again, melting down over on Blue Sky just because of this. I think this is one of the things where it's a topic that we could discuss again at length, which goes to the modding of the games. I do believe that people should be able to mod single-player games as they like to, and they should be able to create mods which they like and apply mods which they like. Those are single-player games. Those are being played by people in the privacy of their homes, on their own PC. They do not interact with anybody else, so whatever they do with their characters should be up to them. Now, of course, people will be offended again by some mods or something like this. It's the always offended people having a meltdown, which, again, I find so funny in this entire gaming niche, whether it's the devs or some of the fans who are just simply not able to cope with the fact that other people might have different preferences and that other people like different stuff than they do. And by the way, the mod, of course, is no longer available on the Nexus mods, as you can see. The mod has been deleted in the meantime. My only guess would be that the poor person that created the actually quite funny mod has been harassed by all these Bioware shills that had a mental breakdown when they have seen Henry from KCD suddenly popping up in their Veilguard games. And on this spot, let me know what was maybe the funniest mod that you have seen. What was the one that made you laugh the most, or the reaction that you think was the most ridiculous to some of the mods that were created? I would really love to hear your thoughts on that one. We have also seen in the past few days the release of the post-release interview for Dragon Age the Veilguard with the games directors, and then we also have seen a Dragon Age the Veilguard developer AMA, which was posted on the Dragon Age subreddit. These were more specific questions related already to in-game happenings, and those were replied then by also the games directors. What was more interesting for me was the Eurogamer interview, the post-release interview, to be honest. I will not read through the entirety of the interview. I will definitely make sure that I show you the links in the description. So as usual with all of my vids, you can find all the relevant links of everything that I'm sharing on screen in the description below, and this interview as well. But I would like to highlight some of the things from the interview. The first one is something that I believe many people already know by now, but it is good to reiterate maybe here on this spot. Dragon Age 4 is a project that's had 3 major revisions, surviving a foray into live service multiplayer at one point, and I think we have noticed that very much, especially in the combat parts of the game, that it should eventually emerge as a single-player role-playing game at the end of it feels like a minor miracle. And at this point, I have to say, for many people who do not perceive the game positively and who think that this was not a game that was done with the original fan base in mind, and people who do not like the game, neither what currently the studio is doing, we would rather be happy if this miracle would not have happened, to be honest, and if we would just not see this kind of butchering of the entire franchise at its end. And I do believe that this is the end of the franchise, because I cannot see a studio creating a flop like this with a huge financial negative impact on EA and then continuing for much longer. You can also see there is in the next paragraph mentioned sales have been only okay, solid, to use EA's term. So only okay still means that they have most probably not even covered the production cost at this point, and I will be honest, I doubt that they ever will We do not know how much the game has cost, but considering what some projects have cost that are comparable in size and length, development length, I don't believe that they will be able to recoup the costs, to be honest. There's also in the same paragraph something which is, let's say, food for thought. It's as though there's a fault line dividing opinion on the game, and you're either on one side or the other of it. I don't know that I've seen the reaction to a Bioware game to be as divided. And this is something actually really negative. I do not think, and it doesn't matter if it's a Zombieware game or any other game, games should not be divisive. They should be either perceived as a good game or as a bad game. They should not be divisive, and that's the point. It is clear that the biggest problem with the new direction is coming from the original fan base, and I'm guessing that the least problems are having those people who haven't played the previous Dragon Age games and are new to the franchise. This game was not made for the original fan base, and the problem is that instead of keeping your original fan base and then doing something on top and trying to pull in some new fans at this point, which would be a huge win for both the studio as well as for EA and the franchise.
Bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone?
They rather decided to, let's say, do a clean slate and completely ignore the original fan base. And if you completely ignore the original fan base, you have to have a pretty solid game in order to draw in enough of the new fan base to be able to have a successful game. And in this case, you don't have a good game. So that's the problem here. And I think also why it's been so divisive, especially this year. We have seen a ton of games that have come out where the people have clearly rejected all this DEI stuff and all this woke nonsense that's being pushed into games for far too long. People have been, let's say, quite patient in accepting this, and up to a certain point people didn't mind. But the way how this game is set up, for example with lecturing you on how you should apologize for misgendering someone, that's something where the most people have a problem with, even those who you would probably call normally the normies, so not the people who are either left or right or woke or anti-woke. It's just simply the normal, usual, everyday gamer who is also at this point already very fed up with
the message.
And especially when it's so prominent like in this game. So I think this is something that was adding a lot to the divisiveness of the game. And especially this year, people have shown that they will no longer tolerate it. This game was obviously created for a minority of the players, completely disregarding the original fan base, not having anything really going for it to draw in enough of the new players. I don't think that this game is a good game, and especially not from a studio like BioWare used to be. Now, the games directors, which were Corinne Bush and John Epler, were asked about the feelings after launch and how did they find the launch period as people's opinions and reviews were rolling in. And I do have to laugh, to be honest, when I see Epler's reaction saying the reviews were coming in fairly well. Of course they were, because most of the journalists have been paid for giving you positive reviews. Of course you have received some good reviews, and they were coming in fairly well. It was not so by the normal fan base that has seen the game for what it is. Of course, there have been a ton of people who were praising the games. Again, those were usually what I call paid shills, even though those people will tell you that they have not been paid. Well, not directly, but those people had some other perks. And it was those people that had, for example, the early access to the game. So for me, it's the same as the journalists. All these people with this early access is just access media, even though those people are YouTube creators, for example, as well. Now, if you have perks, additional perks offered by a studio, then of course your opinion will be tainted. You will not be as negative as somebody who is not related to the studio or who has not been paid or has not received some perks from the studio. So if you are talking about fairly well reviews, you are talking about the people that you have paid yourself. I mean, yourself as in terms of the studio or EA. Yeah, the next point that the directors were discussing was exactly this divisiveness of the game and how all of the installments are different in the franchise. All of these games are different. Again, here Appler says something significant, I think. It's been a decade since the last Dragon Age game came out, and a lot of people have spent that decade imagining various versions of what this game was going to be. The reality was whatever we came out with was never going to match the Dragon Age 4 in people's minds and people's imaginations. My problem is you haven't even tried. What you created is so far removed from everything that the people were used to from the original previous games. You actually changed parts of the lore, and I'm not going into details here. There are other vids by other creators who are very detailed and explain exactly what parts of the lore have been changed. So that is a given, whether it's the Kunari or it's some other stuff. So yeah, it is something that was changed. And let's not forget, you haven't even tried to, let's say, cater to the original fan base. Obviously, you have just removed everything and anything that could be related to the original games. You have only allowed 3 choices to be imported. And all of those 3 choices were related to the last game, Dragon Age Inquisition. And then you included some of the characters from the previous games, obviously just to, let's say, have something that you want to show the original fan base. But those characters have also been so much changed in terms of their characters or personality or what they were doing, what they were saying, or the lore, that you actually just use them as puppets, which were supposed to draw in the original fan base, but they were nothing more than puppets.
Maker's panties, I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it, sorry.
What are you doing?
Pulling a barb.
And I'm not even going to discuss the point that basically they killed off Varric, who was a beloved character since Dragon Age 2. And it was really done in a very cheap way. So it was clearly showing that they really want to get rid of everything that could tie this game to, in any way, shape or form, to the original games and just start with a clean slate. And I don't think it has worked out for them. And then we have here a question which is an indirect question regarding the sales. How has the commercial response to the game been? And the response is, unfortunately, on the sales side, that's not something we can really discuss. So an absolutely evasive answer. I think that says it all. They also go into the details like there will be no DLC. If you have a successful game, I think you would strive to create additional content which you can monetize and where you can get additional revenue from, which in this case, or in case of a game, would be a DLC. Obviously, they are not going to do that. I think we all know why. And last but not least, I wanted to mention something. Remember when, before Veilguard came out, Bioware said that the romances will be spicy. And I made a short vid where I actually laughed about it and said Bioware and spicy, it just doesn't go together. And then there was this one side note where I had to laugh, which was romance scenes can get spicy. Please, it's Bioware, don't make me laugh. Guys, seriously, no. Bioware and spicy scenes, nah, you know what's spicy? Go back to The Witcher 2 and look at that one scene where Geralt is with Triss in the Elven baths. That's spicy. The romance scenes that Bioware is doing, where we see people walking around in underwear, that's not spicy, okay? So unless I see it, I reserve judgment here, but for now, I just, laugh because Bioware and spicy just doesn't click together, sorry. It was just confirmed basically when you look at the game and you look at all the romances that are in it. It is exactly the same as what BioWare did already. Before, you basically see nothing, you just see people hiding behind something or being partially clothed, and then anything that is in any way, shape or form supposed to be spicy is just blacked out. Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, I do understand something else under spicy than Tash growling and spitting.
So now we need to figure out if it's Cashlock or Tomlock.
And those are...
Cashlock's just flirting. You look and make jokes and maybe think about him for fun. Tomlock is serious. Like you want to grab that and taste its neck right by the collarbone.
But let me know what you think about the spicy romances that they promised and what we could see in the games. So in summary, I do believe the game is really not doing so great. We will sooner or later probably get the sales numbers, but I highly doubt it will be anytime soon. Those will be first and foremost presented to the shareholders, and when they are going to be released is a good question. I do not see any future for this franchise, to be honest. I do believe that they have butchered it to the point of no return, and what I am currently afraid of is because basically all of those people that have been working on Dragon Age the Veilguard, or most of them, have moved now to Mass Effect or the next Mass Effect game. And if Dragon Age the Veilguard is any hint of the quality that we can expect from Mass Effect or the next Mass Effect game, then we are looking at the very early death of another franchise. After Dragon Age, it will be Mass Effect. So there's been a lot going on, as you could see, and I'm honestly still wondering about the sales numbers, when we are going to hear any official ones, and if we are going to hear any official ones from Zombieware, as I call the studio by now. But I would really love to hear your thoughts on the topics that were discussed in this vid. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It would be much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned and game on.